Graded video games made huge waves in the world of collectibles in 2021. From the highs of the $1.5 million Super Mario 64 sale, which made headlines in North America and beyond,
we're gonna sell at 1.3 million.
To the lows of Karl Jobst's Karl Jobst's YouTube expose charging fraud and deception in the market. Good or bad, these events put sealed video games on the world stage. So the question remains, sealed video games, is it really a scam? Or is it a legitimate, collectible, investable asset? Today, let's take a little bit of a deep dive into the world. Into the world of graded video games to see if we can derive a little bit of insight into what's happening in the market right now and where it might be headed in the future. There's only one way to figure out what's going on. I got my crystal ball. We're gonna figure this shit out. Let's go. Sealed and graded video games have seen a meteoric rise in value over the last 2 years, starting in 2019 when they first hit the major auction block at Heritage Auctions in January of 2019. The rally started out slow at first, with more of a price discovery happening in the first half of 2019 as the market stabilized. Don't forget, prior to Heritage taking on video games, the entire market took place on eBay, where it was like the Wild West. Even in those early days, the longtime video game collectors...
When I talk about sealed game collectors, they're not video game collectors, because if they were, they'd be satisfied with even a complete in-box copy. I don't care. I just want to play the game.
Are they video game collectors? Or are they video game players? Because let's be real, they were even crying foul back then in early 2019 when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 9.6 for NES sold for $3,600. And it seemed the whole video game market was gaining traction with each subsequent auction as more and more buyers crossed over from other collectible categories. Prices were on a steady rise up. And then the pandemic hit.
Coronavirus officially reaches pandemic proportions.
The breaking news, stay at home, that is the order tonight.
Are you finding yourself maybe a little bit bored? The value of collectibles has soared.
They can hardly keep up with demand.
Coins, paper money, comic books, trading cards, sports cards, everything is busy.
COVID-19 pandemic has helped boost the value.
With everybody stuck at home, alone, bored out of their mind, with nothing to spend their hard-earned dollars on, plus a yearning for the comfort of nostalgia, millions of new buyers entered the collectible space. And sealed video games were no exception. And during the pandemic is when price growth really accelerated. In fact, prices were rising so fast through 2020 that it wasn't unusual for a popular title to double or even triple in a few short months. I found this period in 2020 to be a historic buying opportunity, and I bought so much during this period because everything was happening so quickly that it was like a tale of two markets. There were those old school collectors from the old Wild West days of eBay who felt that these prices were insanely high.
Now look, you can go buy yourself anything you want. New furniture, automobiles, new dresses, electric washing. You know the one you like, the green one?
And then there were those coming from other, more established collectible categories that saw sealed video games as massively undervalued. So both buyers and sellers were rushing to make a deal in this crazy environment.
Just you put your name right down there, and then the deal is legal. I forgot to tell you, I can't write. Well, that's all right. There's no ink in the pen anyhow.
It was chaos. And what a great moment in history when both buyers and sellers feel that they got the upper hand. Momentum continued through 2020 into 2021 at breakneck speeds, pushing more and more new buyers that would have typically wanted to study the market for a few months before putting major money into it, into the market prematurely, before the market completely escaped them. And it all culminated in Heritage's July 2021 auction, where even the most bullish of collectors' minds were blown. myself included. That July 2021 auction was dominated by a few big buyers that seemingly did not care if they overspent by double on certain titles. They simply wanted what they wanted. Now, this may be hard for a lot of people to fathom, but if you just consider that there are people out there who live in a world where an average painting in a Christie's evening auction sells for $20 million.
$69 million, $69 million, $70 million. 71 million.
To someone that comes from that world, $1.5 million sounds cheap for the best piece in the entire hobby, Population 2. And after that monumental July auction, sealed video games had finally made it to the promised land. They had finally achieved that ever-important 7-figure first ever sale. And nobody could have predicted that we would get there in just 2.5 short years of auction. The market was on fire. Things couldn't possibly be going any better. It was happening in fairy tale fashion. And then...
the new Karl Jobst. Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
You ready? I'm so fucking nervous. Oh my god. Alright, fine, we'll watch it.
I know there's bullshit manipulation and all that other stuff, but I'm really interested to see what Karl has to say.
Maybe those grading services aren't all that honest.
Exposing fraud and deception in the retro video game market. His name's Karl Jobst.
The Karl Jobst video went viral overnight, seemingly discrediting every positive and momentous news article surrounding the hobby. Apparently all us collectors are nothing but puppets on a string.
Do I look like a puppet to you, Jobst?
But who is this Karl Jobst, and what makes him the ultimate authority on the sealed video game market? I mean, I've been collecting for over 10 years now, and I've never heard of him before this video dropped. And asking around the hobby, nobody has. Odd, isn't it? His thesis centers around sealed video game collectors and how apparently our minds were being manipulated by the powers that be, and yet he didn't even bother to interview a single real collector to see how we actually thought during this period? Is this really journalism? Karl Jobst is a professional YouTube content creator. His goal is to generate maximum views. He's monetized, plus he has sponsors to please.
Questions. You need to grab yourself some chocolate bars from today's video sponsor, Midday Squares.
And he gets these views by creating sensational and controversial true crime stories centered around gaming. Just look at a list of his most viewed, and most profitable, mind you, videos. And look at these titles. Cheats, fakes, scams. Controversy sells, for Jobst anyways. His viewers aren't looking for a balanced story, and this is a key distinction. You see, a journalist starts with the question first, then sets out in search of an answer, whereas a YouTube content creator, they start with the answer first, usually after visualizing the most clickable title that'll get them 1 million views. Then they set out to make that video. Do you really think that Karl Jobst would have included information in his video that would have caused its title to have to change from this to this? But the video was well produced and effective enough that even news sites saw the commercial potential in covering such a story. And the people gobbled it up. Hello. Not the actual collectors, mind you, people that have been collecting for more than, say, a year. They didn't give a damn about this story, but the public did, especially because everything that you see on the news is real, right? Like the time Fox 9 covered the story about the guy that went into a thrift store and for just $2 bought a priceless Lady and the Tramp poster worth an incredible $40,000. The feel-good story of the week. How clickable is that? Only problem is, the poster wasn't even worth the $2 the poor sucker paid. This was a junky 80s re-release. But Fox 9 ran the story anyways, without doing any research. But I digress. So I had a few problems with the video. My main problem? He didn't present any actual proof of any real market manipulation, other than speculation conflating evil intent based on events 30 plus years ago. Take away the dramatic music and narrative tone for a moment and ask yourself, are these people actually participating in market manipulation, or are they simply promoting their business?
Hey, boss, come here. You want something hot? Not now, I just had lunch. Anyhow, I don't like hot ice cream.
We have to ask ourselves, is it not okay to partake in an interview that may increase the value of our own personal stock? If not, well then, Jobst, you've even caught the great one offside, as have LeBron James, Logan Paul, Justin Bieber, Steve Aoki, Kevin Durant. The list goes on, not to mention every hedge fund ever.
We bought a lot more Apple after year end. One of the fellows in the office has about 10 million shares, and I have for Berkshire's account about 123 million. So he got about 133 million.
Is the owner of Heritage Auctions not allowed to be a collector himself? Is the owner of Christie's Auctions allowed to collect modern art? Should Elon Musk be allowed to drive a Tesla? Should Karl Jobst be allowed to participate in speedruns if his participation may increase demand for his videos? And sorry to break it to you, but you know Pawn Stars is a fake show, right? It's entertainment designed to showcase various collectibles, and they bring in industry experts to give a little bit of history and background on the items. These aren't real negotiations. It's like being asked to go on the Jay Leno show if you're in the collectibles world. You don't turn down that invitation. It's great publicity for your company. And for anyone that thinks that Deniz did something evil in his segment,
Pawn Stars even had Deniz Khan come on, and again he pumped up the value.
go rewatch it with your own eyes. He didn't offer a single opinion of value. Is he not allowed to discuss the history of video games? To be honest, with all the hype, I was surprised not to find any wrongdoing in this clip. And what's with this toxic mob mentality going on in America right now? We used to champion our heroes. Young guys like Deniz that put it all on the line to pursue their lifelong passion. To start a company at age 25 that gets bought out by hedge fund billionaire Steve Cohen within 3 years? That's amazing. That's the American dream. And how does Jobst get off claiming that
I haven't heard of a single legitimate collector buying any of these expensive games?
And he went as far to accuse Eric Nierman, a guy that's dedicated thousands of hours of his free time to studying this hobby, of not being a real collector. Very few people are this dedicated to a hobby. That's the definition of a collector. Jobst has no idea what he's talking about. Is Pat Contry Jobst's only definition of a collector? The same guy that says that true collectors should rip open their one-of-a-kind sealed games because games are meant to be played? Is that really a collector? Does the same guy rip the top off of King Tut's sarcophagus because beds are meant to be laid in? Does the same guy wear Michael Jordan's rookie jersey to a family barbecue because clothing is meant to be worn? And here's something interesting. Pat Contry makes his collecting philosophy very clear here.
They don't care about the first Mario 3 box or the first, you know what I mean? They don't care because they are video game collectors. They are playing the games. Well, I'm not paying 60, 75 bucks for the first print Super Mario Bros. Cart. I'm fine with the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth print runs because I just want to play what to me is one of the best platforms ever created. I don't give a shit that this came out 6 months before this other version. I don't care. I just want to play the game.
But in the next breath,
I can't even drop the money I want to drop on an Amazing Fantasy 15 grade because the price keeps going up 20% each year.
If variants don't matter because comic books are meant to be read, why would you spend $20,000 on an original when you could buy this copy for 20 bucks? It reads the same, and comic books are meant to be read, right, Pat? And with Pat being Jobst's main source of information for this video, I like how he just blatantly ignored anything positive that Pat had to say about WATA.
WATA games, they marketed themselves better, closer to what CGC was than what VGA. VGA dropped the ball. The Video Game Authority, those guys dropped the ball. They could have been this, but they weren't. Plus, well, we talked about how WATA was doing a better job because they had guys that from the video game collecting scene that knew about sealed games to authenticate. They were really more of an authority than VGA, and that's why we liked WATA.
But that doesn't work for Jobst's narrative, so instead he ran with this.
In fact, the Video Game Authority, aka VGA, has been grading games since 2008. But the introduction of VGA didn't cause a bubble like the introduction of WATA Games did. And the reason is simple. VGA didn't manipulate the market. Why would Heritage Auctions, a prestigious auction house, agree to sell games from a company that hadn't graded a single game? Why would they trust a business that hadn't even done any business to begin with, when there was already an existing grading company that had been grading games for 10 years?
Again, this isn't journalism. Pat knows the truth. WATA is a great company and do offer a great service. But the video dropped, and with all the negative talk and headlines it created, momentum shifted and the market pulled back. Of course it did. With the recent rush of new buyers, they didn't have time to properly ground themselves within this hobby. When they read headlines of fraud, they don't know what's going on. Naturally, they'll put their buying on hold.
Don't buy, don't buy.
This video is the true manipulator, and when Jobst finally spoke with some real collectors only after the video dropped, he learned some real truth.
Since you've made the video, how much has your perspective changed?
Yeah, as far as the collecting stuff goes, my perspective has changed a lot. My impression of it was all speculation, but now you've got every collectible is ballooning. Yeah. And even I wouldn't be able to predict what is or isn't normal, what things should or shouldn't be. You know, speaking with you guys, speaking with other collectors, definitely changed my perspective as far as that goes. But definitely the collecting side was, yeah, I believe that I was quite wrong. I don't know. I was probably quite wrong about the collecting stuff. Yeah, I have to freely admit that. I'm not saying even these recent big sales are or anything like shady going on with them. And when it came to the actual collecting side of it, I didn't do much research. I didn't even consider the possibility that I was like way off there. I don't know. Yeah, I'll try to when I talk about it again, I'll try to temper what I said about that thing. Obviously, moving forward, I understand. You know, I understand the dangers of saying stuff like that. I'll try and do my best in the follow-up video to mitigate some of that.
But when he got around to that follow-up video, he promised, you can guess what happened. No comment needed. So with all the noise and confusion going on, sometimes it's important to pull back to your roots, back to a time when I independently formed my own opinion about the future of this hobby. The year was 2012, and I had stumbled upon sealed video games by accident on eBay. I was instantly blown away. Nothing had more clearly brought back the excitement and nostalgia of my childhood than sealed video games. At the time, most key games were only a couple $100. I bought sealed copies of almost every game I remembered playing as a kid. It was awesome. My first big purchase was this copy of Super Mario Bros. 1 Round Seal for NES, for which I paid the hefty price tag of $3,000 at the time. And here's what's important. At the time, in the days before WATA, and it was obvious VGA was not going to cut it, the future of sealed video games was unclear. But when showing my cousins at the time in 2012, I told them with complete confidence, this will be a $1 million game one day. Even though it was just $3,000 at the time, I was absolutely sure of that. Because sealed video games are the comic books of our generation. They're arguably more significant in popular culture. We all remember playing Mario as a kid, yet very few remember actually reading Action Comics 1 as a kid. And sealed video games are proving to be insanely rare. Just compare these population reports. And not to mention, they display better than comic books. Sealed video games are the future of collecting. There is no denying that, and one clickbait video is not going to change that. Ignore all the background noise, and be sure to follow your heart. Good luck with your collecting adventures.